Good afternoon, Team Osan. Colonel Betts, sir, thank you for coming out. Team Osan, thank you for being here. It's truly a privilege that I get to stand up here and introduce one of my best friends that's going to give you some information that's going to change your life. So if you look up in the dictionary between what management means and what leadership means, they sound somewhat similar. But I actually wrote the definition down so that I'm speaking smartly to it. So when you think about management, is the process of dealing with or controlling things or people. Does that sound like leadership? It doesn't to me. So Chief Tim Pachasa, career TAC B by trade. 25 years he and I have been friends. Came out of basic training together. And Chief Pachasa is a two-time graduated command chief at the wing level at Joint Base McGuire-Dix Lakehurst. And then again, for a Tier 2 assignment coming out of that job, he had the opportunity to go downrange where we hold those command chief positions for the elite. And Chief Pachasa is exactly that. He's the elite. He's since removed his star because life happens. And he's gonna give you some really, really good points on how to deal with those sorts of things. So he's gonna go be a dad in about 4 months. So I am very, very proud and humbled to let my friend know that, hey man, I love you. I love each and every one of you airmen. That's why we do things like this, is to develop you and to bring guest speakers in and to mentor and teach and lead, because that's our responsibility, is to leave this place better than when we found it. So after Chief leaves our base, it's going to be better than when he got here because of the message that he's going to give to you right now. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce my friend, Chief Master Sergeant Tim Pachasa.
Good afternoon, everybody. Colonel Betts, sir, thank you very much for being here. Truly humbled by your presence. I know firsthand how busy a wing commander is, so the fact that you found the time to be here, I am truly humbled. It really speaks a lot to everyone here in this room, so I really appreciate it. Chief Easy, by man crush for Adam so hard, it borders on inappropriate. And I've known him all but 6 weeks of my Air Force career, and I can't imagine my career. I don't want to think what it would have been like without you in it. So for your friendship, for your mentorship, for our collaboration, continued collaboration, it is truly an honor. So thank you. To everyone here today, thank you for being here. This is absolutely awesome. There's more people in this theater than I could have ever dreamt possible. So for you wanting to be here, for you showing up is half of it, right? If you just show up, it's amazing what can happen to you. You know, life at best will meet you halfway. And so for you to be here to just try and get something new, I really appreciate it. Next slide, please. This brief is an evolution of me being a student of really just human nature. I'd always studied my bosses, listened to what they said, focused on how they interacted, both good and bad. And I always knew that some of my bosses were awesome. I knew that some of them sucked. But as a young airman, I couldn't articulate why they sucked. Just didn't have it. And the best part about the Air Force is they really helped me out with that. As I went through PME, a little bit in ALS, and definitely NCO Academy, they gave me the vocabulary and the vernacular to explain distinctly why people were good or bad. And this whole journey, this whole process that we're going to talk about here, I went from being a student of human nature to a student of leadership in 2004. So the quick story here is that I got to invade Iraq in 2003. I was just coming out of Korea, my first tour in Korea. I was stationed at Camp Casey up north for all of 2002. I was stationed here at Osan Air Base as the operations superintendent for 607 ASOG for my beloved Roadrunners. And then in 13 and 15, I got to come here at TDY when I was the PACAP TAC B functional manager. And so it's really weird seeing the evolution of Osan as my career has evolved and changed, and it's really humbling. But I get back from Korea, I invade Iraq. And like Chief Easy said, career TAC B were the dudes that call in airstrikes for Army units. And so I spent nearly the whole year gone. I get back in December 2003, just in time for yearly awards. So our whole squadron had deployed except for like 4 or 5 people who stayed home just to run the squadron. And so my fellow teammates did amazing things. So we all put our packages in, and we do the annual awards. And so in January 2004, we get the word that our NCO of the year was the one sergeant who didn't deploy at all. And I came unglued. I just couldn't fathom that decision. So I went into my commander's office. He was awesome, open door policy. Took that at face value, great guy. He and I still talk. And I said, sir, I just don't get this. I'm not saying that it should have been me, but there's a half dozen of my friends that I would have no problem with them winning this award. I just don't understand in the year of invading Iraq, the year of what should have been the TACP and dropping bombs and calling airstrikes and finding significant success on the battlefield, how you could give this award to somebody who didn't deploy. He said, Sergeant Pachasa, you guys all had great job bullets, but you had no significant self-improvement or community involvement. To which I replied, I liberated a country. Okay. I don't know if it gets better than that, but apparently that didn't count. But he and I had a conversation, and I understood what he meant. And that was truly my first real grasp at what the Whole Airman Concept is, way back then. And so I set out and I decided that none of my airmen would ever suffer the fate that I had that day. And it wasn't about getting promoted. I just wanted my airmen recognized for a job well done. And specifically because I couldn't justify that answer to them. It just didn't make sense to me. And so I realized that I was going to have to play the Air Force game. But it's not about playing the Air Force game. And that's true today. I call it adulting. Plain and simple. Regardless of your career field, regardless of your career, whether you're in the military or not, there are things that you're going to have to do for your organization that you may or may not disagree with, or may or may not agree with, that you do in fact disagree with, you don't want to do, but you're probably going to have to do it anyway. And so here's where I'm going to shape a conversation for you, because at my very core, I hate the Whole Airman Concept. And before I get wildly misquoted for this, let me explain. Show of hands. Who here signed their name on a line and said, I am ready to die for the United States of America? The entire theater. Another show of hands. Who here said, I am willing to spend months away from my family on a foreign shore to defend America and her interests? As we all sit here in South Korea. Right? Who here, show of hands, is willing to die on a foreign shore helping free and liberate and oppress people? Everybody's hands go up. So here's my issue. At what point, short of your own death, do we as airmen get to pick and choose what we will or won't do for America and for our beloved Air Force? We're willing to die to free and oppress people, but we won't volunteer and help out our Americans back home? We're willing to fight and sustain life and free people all over the globe, but we won't get smarter for it. I don't understand these arguments. Now, I'm not trying to call anybody out, but I do hear airmen and NCOs say, I didn't join the Air Force to take school. I didn't join the Air Force to volunteer. I get it. But there's a difference. And the reason that I hate the Whole Airman Concept is because it doesn't motivate me. It doesn't speak to me. Because if I talk to airmen and I say, hey, what does the Whole Airman Concept mean to you? They're going to say 4 things. It's be good at your job, take school, volunteer to get promoted. That still does not motivate me. It definitely doesn't inspire me. Because we've sold this and we've pushed it in a way that says if you do these things, this is going to make you a better airman for the Air Force. Okay, I do not believe that. To my very core, I do not believe that. Because these concepts of being great at your job and volunteering and taking school is not about making you a better airman for the Air Force. And as just cheesy as this sounds, I again believe this. In my heart of hearts, I believe this. Is that doing these things makes you a better airman for America. America. That is what it's about. And I'm here to tell you, and I don't think you need to hear me say this, America needs us right now. We're going through some challenging times. And when Americans are suffering and they're struggling and they look to that last beacon of hope, they look to the U.S. military. And I want them to look at the United States Air Force. Because we need smart, educated warriors. who can go from the front lines to the front yard and operate. From killing to grilling, you need to be plug and play so you can talk to the fellow Americans. They don't want mindless drones, warmongers who just kill, warheads on foreheads, rah, right? That's part of it. Osan Air Base knows that. You know air power. You know how to shoot down planes. You know how to attack the ground. I get that. But you also know what it means to evacuate non-combatants, to move supplies, to help people around you. That is what being an American is about too. These are the ideals that we hold true, and this is what rings true to us in our heart of hearts. And I would like to believe that everybody here in this theater joined for those reasons. So again, I hate the whole airman concept because it doesn't inspire me. I want to push the American airman concept on what we do, what we feel, what we believe as human beings, and the ideals that we should promote for America and her interests. Does that sound fair? Does that sound better? Because a lot of our literature just says whole airman concept. It mentions it vaguely in the enlisted force structure, on the EPR, stuff like that. But it really just comes down to be good at your job, volunteer, take school. But as we go through this, when we go through the Pachasa 8, I think I'm going to show you a different way and a better understanding of these concepts in a tangible, repeatable, transparent way that I think can greatly affect your units and your teams for enhanced mission success. All the words I'm going to go over, we know these, but we don't truly think about them on a daily basis. And as you listen here, I empower you, I challenge you, I beg you to not take me at face value. Question me, doubt me. If I can't convince you of what I'm talking about up here, then I don't know it well enough. But I want to have the conversation. And you're going to hear me say this over and over and over again throughout this hour, is that leadership is about getting the conversation right. Leadership is not a mindset. Leadership is an action. It's stepping to the plate and swinging the bat. That's what the first guy, Colonel John Price, who hired me for my first command chief gig, that's how he explains leadership. It is an action. Because you can know all about baseball. You can understand the pitcher. You know where you need to stand in the batter's box. But you do, in fact, have to step up and swing. You're going to strike out. We'll talk about that. You're going to hit home runs. We're going to talk about that too. But when we talk about the American Airman concept, I will acknowledge right here, right now, that the volunteering in the school is not easy for a lot of AFSCs. Based on shift schedules, whatever you have to do, maintainers, cops, comm folks, if you're working 12-hour shifts, I know how painful it is. But I need you to have the conversations because there is a way to do it. And as we go through this, and again, I don't want to ignore that it's not always as easy as it sounds at face value. I get that. But I promise you, if you engage your leadership in the conversation about finding success through the Pachasa 8, I promise you there's an answer to be found. And I promise you there's ground to be gained, and that's going to help you and your teams. And then when we walk away from this, I want you to understand or think for yourself how you feel about the whole airman concept. Hopefully, I've gotten some of you to change your mindset about what it maybe is or isn't according to you before you walked into this theater. If you're at least thinking about it being differently. Because I would like to think that inside this entire theater, this is packed with people who are very open-minded and who know that there are two types of people. That there are people who are capable of evolution and people who aren't. And I think as women, leaders, warriors, we need to adjust, we need to adapt, we need to evolve. I hope this is a step toward that very end. Next slide, please. These are one man's thoughts. This comes from my perspective, but about 2 years ago, I had to define what perspective was. And we talk about differing perspectives, but I sat down and thought about everything that shaped my perspective, and it came down to 6 things. I believe that perspective is based off of family, and that's where you grew up, how you grew up, who raised you, what schools you went to, socioeconomic status, culture, all those things. Anything up to and including the time that you joined the military, I'll call that family in a general sense. So family, education, training, experiences, and then lastly, successes and failures. So this brief is a mix of all those 6 different parts that I've learned through my 24 and a half years of military service that we're going to discuss. Not AFSC bound. I believe this transcends any Air Force specialty. I believe this transcends the Air Force and the U.S. military. I believe the Pachasa 8 can and should be applied to any endeavor that you could possibly ask to do throughout any lifetime, regardless how long. Built on warfare, applied everywhere. For Chief Veazey and me, it's a combination of Air Force ops, Army ops, and joint ops. From like the leading edge of the battlefield to some of the senior echelons inside the enlisted force. That's a huge bit of ground for somebody to have experience on. This is why he wanted me to have here. This is why we continue to collaborate, and we can go forward from there. For the last three, if you want to make a difference, which I believe is why a lot of us join the Air Force, if you want to make a difference, you have to do things differently. So what are you doing as leaders, as teammates, as airmen, perhaps as parents, as people in a relationship? If you want to make a difference somehow, try and do things differently. I believe that this is a different understanding of the whole airman concept. And I believe the American Airman Concept is better. I want to teach it differently. I want you to understand it differently because I want to make a difference. I've got 4 months left to try and do that. Please help me in that endeavor. General Goldfein and Chief Wright. Nothing short of amazing. And I have a podcast. We'll kind of get to that at the very end. But one of the titles of my podcast is, I don't care about leadership, I care about good dudership. I just want to be a good dude. And forgive the vernacular, I'm not trying to offend anybody here, but two of the best compliments that I can give anybody in the world, because we always do this when we find out someone's PCSing in, we ask some of our friends, hey, do you know who Sergeant X is? And the answer we hope to hear is, hey, he's a good dude, or she's an awesome chick. Plain and simple. Let's go with that answer. And when General Goldfein and Chief Wright say, hey, don't wait for us, get ahead of the power curve, I believe this is what they're talking about. Find the good dude answer. If your good dude answer violates AFI, talk to your leadership. Bring it up to the wing commander and show him the pathway for him to assess and accept risk so you can execute that good dude answer. They've given you a voice, a true voice to be heard. And I think there is tons of evidence to show that General Goldfein and Chief Wright are listening to you 100%. As one of my group chiefs downrange in Kuwait told me, Chief Ray Riley, closed mouths don't get fed. If you are not speaking your voice, obviously they're not going to hear you. Speak up. Social media, whatever you have to do. By all means, do it professionally, right? But you have a voice, and they have given you that voice. But it is up to you to use it. And then lastly, and superbly, and supremely, thank you for what you do. It is an honor for me to be up here thanking a theater full of my countrymen for the amazing jobs that you do, not only for America, but for the Republic of Korea. It is really awe-inspiring. And throughout my career, I've always hated the people wearing a uniform, thanking me for my service, right? It just seemed, for whatever reason, hypocritical. But I have a different perspective now. And a lot of contemporary American society is not brought up to be selfless and to think of somebody else before themselves. And I'm sitting here in a room full of my countrymen and women who understand that concept. For your service, for your sacrifice, from the bottom of my heart. And the words of Chief Adam Veazey, I 100% love you. Next slide. This is it. And then so this is the Pachasa 8. The acronym is Corporal Timid, CPL-TIMID. And if you want to write this down, if you want to take a picture, go ahead and do this. But we're going to talk about each one individually. We'll go through some quick tips at the very end. I'll leave it up here for a few seconds if you want to bring phones out. But we're going to take pictures and go through it. The reason I just put it up here, I want you to think about how you understand these words. And if these words speak to you in any different way, but I believe that my briefing today will put a little twist on each word that you probably weren't ready for and you weren't expecting to have a conversation about. Because again, I just want us to get the conversation right. Next slide. Communication, the hardest thing that we do. That's what my last boss in Kuwait, Colonel Steve Hodge, said. He also said words is important. So we need to speak with the right words. This is why I'm defining these for you and my expectations for these words. Because communication is difficult, but it's not just that we are communicating, it's what we are communicating. And 99% of the times, we're communicating expectations. I kid you not, I have studied the word expectation for nearly 7 years. It took me 4 years to define expectation. And defining expectations as it relates to assumption and anticipation, and what is the difference between those three words. I'm not going to get into that today, but helping build the shared and common vernacular is one of the keys to leadership and making sure we all value these words to the same level. Next slide. This is how we saw communication as far as the counterinsurgency plan in Afghanistan about 10 years ago. So I think we understand that we can communicate this way, and this is what communication is in the military. We're a system of systems to make sure that we can communicate rapidly, quickly, as completely as possible. But communication is also this. Next slide. I would not want to be that dude. Somewhere in a bunker, alone and afraid, being the linchpin to all ground communication. It can come down to one person and one single person's efforts. But understanding communication. Has anyone here seen the movie Hitch? Right, so Will Smith played Alex Hitchens. In the very beginning of the movie, he says that 60% of all human communication is body language. 30% is tone, so 90% of what you're saying ain't coming out of your mouth. Those numbers are a bit skewed. That goes back to a 1960 study, and it was really 57%, 58%, and 33%, and then the rest was like 7% after that. So the numbers are just a bit fudged. That was bad public math, right? But the 1960 study, those numbers were brought up of a study that talked about inspiring speech, or speech that was supposed to either motivate or provoke some kind of reaction, which I believe by and large in the military, this is what we do. When we talk to our folks, they should be motivated to do something. So I think those numbers apply. But we need to communicate well. We'll talk that a little bit more at the very end. But I need you to communicate. I need you to over-communicate in a lot of circumstances. And some of the easiest way to do that is not using the 5 W's. I think the 5 W's suck. And we don't challenge it because we learned it as kids and because it rhymes. I guess it doesn't really rhyme, it's just good alliteration, right? Who, what, when, where, why. So I'm asking everyone in the theater here to not use the 5 W's ever again. Because when you brief who, what, when, where, why, the why amplifies or modifies the what only. So I believe in the 8 W's. It's not the who, what, when, where, why. It's the who and why. The where and why, when and why, what and why. I dare you to try that today. Asking a friend out to dinner, anything that you have, you will get a more complete picture for leading an expectation when you are trained to give the why at every single level. Increased communication, better communication, builds that felt need, but not because you're trying to build a felt need. You're just being transparent. You're trying to help your teams achieve more. And if you can be proactive enough to brief the why, your teams will be better for it, I promise you. Next slide. Professionalism. The Air Force had gone a bad way for a long time. And we'd exalted certain things over others, as I found out. Because me or some of my friends missed out on a yearly award because we weren't recognized for the professional job we did with no significant self-improvement and no community involvement. And a lot of times we looked at professionalism as the person inside the office who's always kind and polite, cleaned and polished, creases in uniforms. That's how we understood professionalism. Next slide. This is probably what you would think of when you think of a professional workforce. Because we look at this picture, we see men and women, different ages, different cultures, different ethnicities. Right? This is professionalism in its purest form. Other than, it's BS. Next slide. That is professionalism. 100%. Because that guy probably stinks to high heaven. He's probably cussing up a storm. And I promise you the cleanest thing in this picture is his weapon. But he's professional. He's hacking the mish. He's doing what he's trained to do. And he may be dirty and he may be grungy, but he cares about the mission. and he's working the mission, and he's making the mission happen for people on the battlefield, and he is affecting the outcome of that battle. That is professional, period. This is what we do. Let's not mistake our understanding of what professional is. It has to be pure, and it has to start with awesomeness in your primary AFSC. Focus on that and exalt that. Make that the primary thing. I was telling the morning class that when I first got to my first wing as a command chief, for the below the zone board, it was 15 bullets, 7 job, 4 education, 4 community involvement. Over half of those bullets were not job related. I couldn't get it. I asked my boss immediately, sir, we need to stop this right here, right now. We can do this better. And he did. It went to 7, 2, and 1. That's a number I'm okay with. If 70 to 80% of our our percentage, where we do awards, recognition, and again, this is just Tim Pachasa's thought. This isn't the Air Force doctrine on Whole Airman Concept. This is Chachi's thoughts on his American Airman Concept. 70 to 80% should be focused on job awesomeness. And we will look at the other stuff later. Not that it's not important, but we can't forsake how we define professionalism and awesomeness. Let's make sure we're clear on this first before we move forward. Next slide. I never had a class on how to be loyal or what loyalty meant. And I think when we raised our hands for a contemporary understanding of the military culture, the military enterprise, is that we're going to be loyal to the United States and the Constitution at all costs. I don't believe that. But I don't believe that for all the right reasons. Because you're individuals. You're human beings. It can't be that cut and dry. You are going to suffer. You are going to have bad days. Life is going to beat you down. Deployments are going to beat you down. PCSs are going to beat you down. Things are going to be tough. Next slide. I don't know if there's anything cuter when you talk about loyalty. Like a dog or a puppy and a little kid, that's amazing. Right? So they're loyal to each other. I'm probably loyal to these two. I don't even know them. But I'd probably fight to the death to make sure that harm would never befall them. Next slide. I'll kill anyone in the room if anything is going to happen to my sons. Right? I love seeing the loyalty between my then 12-year-old and my then 3-year-old. But I'm loyal to them. But I'm also loyal to America. So what happens? How do we solve this problem? How do we understand loyalty? Here's what I think about when I think about loyalty. Next slide. Are we developing a culture? Are we instilling in our warriors the ability to run into the building and save a wounded Marine first sergeant? Are we cultivating the mindset of what loyalty means to one another? To help one another out? To understand that somebody can have a bad day and yes, still be awesome. And just because I don't want to be deployed over the holiday season doesn't mean I love America any less. But sometimes we have competing loyalties. That's okay because you're human beings. What is not okay is for you to not have the conversation. Just ask the question. When I was an operations superintendent in my squadron in Fort Riley, Kansas, one of my guys got hit with the deployment. He had the most dwell time, so it was his turn to go. The chief said he was going. I went in his office and said, hey chief, I know he has the most dwell. I know that it's his turn to go, but he missed the birth of his last kid because he was deployed. His wife's pregnant again. I would like to see him not go. I would like to look for a volunteer. I'm not asking you to task anybody in his place. Just please let me see if I can find a volunteer. And the chief said, no, it's his turn. He's got to go. This is it. And he says, no, the mission has to come first. And at this point, I knew I hated that chief. You cannot apply that mindset. What mission was going to fail if my buddy Jason went at that point in time? The deployment orders weren't for Jason has to go on this. What mission was going to come to a stop if I sent somebody else? The mission wasn't going to fail I hate that, and we were talking about this earlier. For the people in this room who have heard someone give an answer like, well, the mission has to come first as a way to stop an argument and stop discussion about adding a human factor to orders, I have a nickname for those people who say the mission has to come first. I call them losers. Because they don't understand the human aspect of things. They don't understand the dynamics of the human weapon system and what we do to maintain a good, positive mindset and understanding of how we can sacrifice. I want you to be loyal to the country, but I don't think it's going to happen, and you have to do that every single second of every day. It's got to make sense because we're human beings and we're teammates. The chief would not let me do that. So I called my group chief. I said, hey, whatever name that we send up from 10 ASOS, I've got another name. Ask about this name. We don't need to send Jason. Someone else can go. And if a deployment comes up in 2 more weeks and we have to send Jason, we have to send Jason. But I fought the good fight. I wanted to have the conversation. I wanted to do what was right. That was one of the biggest wins of my entire career. Somebody else went because they volunteered, because we have huge re-enlistment bonuses. This guy got a re-enlistment bonus tax-free. Jason stayed home and was there for the birth of his second child. That was an amazing win. Loyalties waver. But it's up to you to communicate that. Again, get the conversation right. If you don't speak up and we send you, and you're bitter and furious that all that stuff happened, that's not on your leadership. They don't know what they don't know, and closed mouths don't get fed. You have a voice. Please use it. Next slide. Teamwork. I think the Navy SEALs do this best. I wish the Air Force did it more, because they're SEAL teams. I would love to be part of a squadron team, group team, wing team. We need to use team, because I think it develops a culture of rank, hopefully, shouldn't matter. Rank does matter, but at face value, rank only matters for an understanding of where you fit in the hierarchy and how much we pay you. Because if I have to say, hey, you need to do this because I'm a chief, I promise you I have failed as a leader. I've become that manager that Chief Veazey was talking about. If I have to resort to that, I have not developed a team, a true team, in a sense that is meaningful and that promotes collaboration and communication. Because if you're on the team and you think of the team, you should have a free flow of information. You can have respectful dissent. You can talk about all these things and still be a good teammate. We're not always going to agree. We're not always going to like each other. But if at some point I shut somebody up because I'm a chief and I said so, that's probably not right. There are rare circumstances where that is 100% applicable, don't get me wrong, but by and large, that should not be the way we communicate with our teams, because we should use influence and heart to make sure that we are communicating and just really understanding the teams that we work with and understanding the mission that we have to do. Next slide. Because this is probably the picture perfect ideal of what teamwork means. This is it. We're going to help each other out. A team. Together, everyone achieves more. I'm there. I'm with you. Next slide. But what about this? Patching each other up. Being there when somebody is wounded. This is, in fact, a bad day. This could be, this guy on the left, the worst day of his entire life. Have you created or cultivated an environment and culture where you know what to do when the person that you work with is having the worst day of their life, bullet hole or not? How do we understand our teammates? How do we be there for our teammates? And how do we understand teamwork in a way that is going to truly matter, motivate, and inspire somebody? Next slide. Initiative. This is a little bit of a nebulous concept for people, and I had a guy in my earlier career when I briefed this, they said, Chief Pachasa, well, Sergeant Pachasa at the time, you can't tell people to have initiative because that is going to take away their ability to initiate. Had this stupid little semantic argument with me about it. I don't know what point he was trying to make. Here's my point. Next slide. Felix Baumgartner. I have no idea the level of initiative it took for him to even think he would want to do this. Or the initiative it took for him to climb into the capsule and climb up to 120,000 feet in the air. And then the initiative it took to stand up inside the capsule and walk forward. and then the initiative it took for him to take his life into his own hands and jump. That's a lot of initiative. His life was on the line. That's amazing. A huge success story. But I think in the military, initiative has a much, much better picture. Next slide. I can't even imagine the guy second from left, what it took from him to crawl out of this trench and say, gentlemen, follow me. It's time to move. That's initiative. And for him to be there in that trench, probably talking to all the other guys in there, be like, hey, this is it. It's game time. The situation is right. The sun's about to set. I think they're out of ammo. I'll see you in Valhalla. Then you climb out of the trench, and hopefully your team follows you. We need to understand initiative because the United States Air Force has far too diverse of a mission set on a huge global scale for any of your leaders to sit around and have to tell you to do something. We need the initiative. Do something. Try something new. Because here's the deal. You're going to fail. I kind of started this when I first took the stage. You're going to fail. I get that. You're going to strike out from time to time. You're going to hit home runs too. But you as a leader, when you're talking to your people, when they initiate and when they strike out, do not berate them and chastise them to a level that they never want to step up to the plate again. It is okay to fail. You're going to swing at a shitty pitch. You're going to swing at a pitch in the dirt. Don't swing at the same dumb pitch twice. Learn, grow, evolve. Because the next time you step up to the plate, I want you hitting dingers. Reggie Jackson is Mr. October for the home runs he can hit in the playoffs and World Series. That dude can strike out like a champ. But he's still Mr. October. Because he hits home runs and he wasn't afraid to swing for the fences. Let's make sure that our teammates that we lead know it is okay to swing for the fences. Not everything's going to be a home run. And maybe in this day, in this age, maybe a single is good enough for today. All that we should be able to ask of our people is 5 things. Do what you can with what you have at that time, regardless of the environment, whether you want to or not. That's all I can ask of anybody. And the answers we come up with today may be wrong tomorrow when more information comes in. Circumstances change, environments change, and that's okay. Because we did what we could with what we had at that time, regardless of the environment, whether we wanted to or not. That's what I'm talking about. We can do this, and we can communicate it better, and we can get the conversation right for our teams. Next slide. This is a big one for me. And my understanding of motivation really changed in the last month or so. And since it has, my world has been flipped upside down. Next slide. Rocky. You know, on deployments, we always talk about different things, and I meet different people. So I'd have lunches as a command chief, and so we'd have different questions. What's the best movie of all time? What's the best comedy of all time? And I would say, you know, I'd always say, like, what's the best sports movie of all time? But then you'd have to separate it. What's the best serious sports movie? And what's the best comedy sports movie? But then when we talk about serious sports movie, I said you can't say any Rockies because done, right? We can just, they're the best, done, gone. Because some of you women may do this, right? So not to get too gender specific, I apologize. But I bet for nearly every dude here in the room, you've watched a Rocky movie, gone to the bathroom and started shadow boxing in the mirror. It's impossible not to do that. Rocky's that awesome. And you know, don't shake your head like you didn't do it. You did it. I promise. But it wasn't motivation. It was something else. Next. This is a little bit hard to read. 2 guys with guns, one dragging the other. Rule 1, good men will die. Rule 2, Doc, or not even Doc, can change Rule 1. And rule number 3, for his brothers, Doc will die trying to change Rule 1 and 2. I'm 2 for 2 at crying when I read that. That's not motivation. That's inspiration. And in PME, we talk a lot about motivational theory. We understand Adam's equity theory and Vroom's expectancy theory. theory, and Hertzberg's two-factor theory, and McClellan's theory, and the Blanchard-Hershey model for situational leadership. Why are there no contemporary theories of inspiration? I want you to be motivated. I studied all those things. Yes, I absolutely want you to be internally motivated. But as one of your leaders, I wanted to know what I could do to affect change, to make sure that you were externally motivated in a way that was meaningful to you. But not until this month did I ever put purposeful thought into trying to inspire somebody. If that had happened along the way, great. But I'm here to tell you I never tried. And that's horrible for me to admit. I cared about motivation, but I never cared about inspiration. And why would I not? You know, I've been a chief for a little over 4 years now. Why would I not? Like every day as a chief, pick one person inside my unit, one person that I met passing on the street. Why would I at least not try to inspire one person a day? Because I can make that change. And I'm not saying I'm inspirational. I'm not saying that. That's probably why I got away from it, because I didn't understand the concept. I don't have to be inspirational to try and inspire somebody, because I think that's a weird ego trip that I didn't want to get into. But maybe I could say something. Maybe I can encourage somebody to maybe pick their head up. Maybe be a little bit better today than they were yesterday. Or if I saw them having a tough time, maybe I could bring them a coffee. Maybe I can give them a card and say, hey, you know what? You're pretty damn awesome. And I appreciate that you're on my team. And my team wouldn't be where it is today if you weren't here. And I appreciate you. Let's think about inspiration and not just motivation. And the reason I haven't changed the word at the beginning of this from motivation is it's got to start with our understanding of motivation, of what motivates on a personal level, not just a macro level. We need to understand on a micro level. Next slide. Involvement. Next slide. This is how we understand involvement, I think, in a contemporary context as it applies to the Whole Airman concept. This is good. We can go out, we can volunteer. This could be any of our family, friends, mothers, daughters, sisters, brothers, cousins, on any park, in any place, in any city, USA. Doesn't matter. We could absolutely see this. Next slide. But we as a military get involved too. When there's a tsunami, the Air Force is there to save people. When there's a hurricane, the Air Force is there to save people. I guarantee that throughout this huge winter storm that's hitting the States right now, we're going to need to fly in supplies. We're going to need to help. And the United States Air Force is going to be there to be a force for good. Because we are involved. And if we're involved as a service, I expect you as an airman to do what's right and be involved in your local community. And again, I know that a lot of us work long hours and people have shift work, and it can be absolutely soul crushing. I absolutely get it. That's a good reason why it makes it difficult, but not impossible. But if you believe in this concept, if you believe in what we can do as an American airman to truly make a change, you can do this, because you can have the conversation with your leaders. When I was at McGuire Air Force Base, all of my maintainers on the KC-10s and C-17s, all of them worked 12-hour shifts. And that's at work for 12 hours. Not counting the time it took for them to get up and drive to work, and the time they had to pack up all their stuff and leave after. You're looking at a 13, 14-hour day. I get that it's hard for them. And a lot of that time they had to spend doing different things. But the thing about the Pachasa 8, the first 6 words, I want you to do every second of every day you're alive. And the last 2, involvement, development, try and do one thing a month. Or at a bare minimum, one thing every other month. Just one thing. But do one thing in a manner commensurate with your grade, and you can find success. Because even if you do it every other month, by the end of the year, you'll have 6 things to choose from to represent your awesomeness, to show people that you, in fact, were an American airman, that you promoted American values on a global scale, and that you're ready for increased challenges and even more awesomeness. And I get that it's difficult, but we're involved as a service. I want you to understand that, yes, we do expect you to be involved as an airman. I don't think it's asking too much. I honestly don't. I get that you are burdened. That is not lost on me. And I know that there's a lot of soul-crushing stuff out there. Life is going to beat you down. Military life is going to beat you down. Military life during a time of war is damn near impossible. And military life deployed during a time of war is really unsurvivable on so many levels. I don't know what to say. But it's up to you to know when is too much because you are here on your own accord. And I really want to keep you. But if you think that this is getting to be too much, have the conversation with your leadership. If you want to adjust your schedule so you can do something to be involved, talk to your leadership and have the conversation. There are absolutely ways to do this. Please communicate it. Please, please, please. I don't want you stuck not doing something because of your bad schedules. I have not seen one leader not try if someone is truly driven and willing to do things of this nature. Next slide. Development. Again, America needs educated warriors. We need learned people on the battlefield who are going to go out and promote America's interests in whatever battlefield that they would want and in whatever environment, because Americans don't want mindless warmongers. You need to be plug and play. From the front lines to the front yard, you need to be able to communicate and interact. To go from killing to grilling, America wants to know that you are fighting for her interests and you're helping people out. That's what the education aspect is before, because it's more than just a degree, right? And for all the people who think that you have to take school and get a bachelor's degree in order to be successful, or you have to have a bachelor's to make chief or become a command chief, guess when I got my bachelor's? 5 weeks ago. You can do this. You absolutely can. I get it's different in different career fields, but you need to talk to your leadership. Again, have the conversation for what it's going to take to be successful. But a lot of times we don't speak up and we avoid these conversations. Next slide. Because we think of this as taking school and working out as different ways to develop us, and I totally get it, and I support it. And these are great endeavors. Next slide. But there's a sense of accomplishment too. And it was really weird and embarrassing for me as a command chief, because when I became a command chief at the 305th Air Mobility Wing at Joint Base McGuire-Dix Lakers, and the wing commander who hired me had a PhD in strategic leadership, he would talk about things, and I felt like I was just sitting there sucking my thumb. Because he had a couple different master's degrees, and he had a PhD, and I could not have the same conversation that he had. And it was embarrassing. So I had to read, I had to learn, I had to evolve, because that I knew that I wasn't smart enough, quite honestly, to have the same conversation that he was having. And anytime I couldn't compete in that conversation with either him or other senior leaders inside Air Mobility Command, that my people were going to miss out. That's part of education too. And if you look at the bottom right, I absolutely love the guy on the right. He's just talking on the phone. Something's blowing up right next to him. He's like, yep, I heard it. It's pretty good. Keep it coming, right? But to me, he's sitting there. He's smart. He's in tune to his environment. He knows what's going on. He knows what has to happen. I hope he was expecting that explosion. Excuse me, I'm getting over a cold. Right? But both guys there on the mic, getting ready to talk, to communicate, understanding what's going on, educated enough, because there are things that are far greater than just getting a degree. The things that you take during school are going to help you out far past that. I hated some of the classes that I took, but I loved the interaction I had with some of the other students. That ended up being huge for me. It grew my perspective. I'm able to have better, more educated conversations because I did these things. Next slide. So, that's the Pachasa 8. That is my version of the American Airman Concept and what you can do to help find success. Now, I'll be the first person to tell you, I have not had a picture-perfect career. At 7 years in the Air Force, as a staff sergeant, I got kicked off of deployment and kicked out of a country and then sent home and then kicked out of my Special Operations Unit. I had a bad day. There's not a day goes by that I don't think about that day. And I kind of sat around, I licked my wounds for a couple years, and then 2003 happened, and I invaded Iraq. I came back and didn't get NCO of the year, my buddies didn't, and I realized that something needed to change in my career. I developed the Pachasa 8. It took me 5 tries total to make staff in tech. I am not a fast burner. And I invented the Pachasa 8, and I stuck to my Pachasa 8. And then it took me 4 tries total to make Master, Senior, and Chief. I had a much better second half of my career than I had in the first half. And I credit it largely to my understanding of these concepts. Communication, professionalism, loyalty, teamwork, initiative, motivation. I want people to do it every second of every day in every interaction they have with anybody on the planet. And then involvement and development, do it once a month, once every other month, at least, in a manner commensurate with your grade, and I promise you, you will be competitive. Competitive for everything. Competitive just for opportunities. And for me, it didn't always result in promotion, and that's okay. But I had a lot of great opportunities because of these things that I did. Being on a NATO assessment team, being a formal schoolhouse instructor for all these different types of stuff that helped shape conversation and different things for me, it helped out. This isn't about being promotable. I guess it could be. It's just about being successful, but in a tangible, repeatable, transparent way that people can recognize. These next 12 slides are part of the in-brief that I give anybody that works for me. And these 12 slides normally take about an hour, but I'm gonna kind of breeze through them because I think I've kind of belabored some of these points already, or you'll see where they tie into the Pachasa 8 as we go through. So here we go. Rule 1. Bad news never gets better with time. Please share it. Communicate, communicate, communicate. Over communicate if you have to. And it's okay. A lot of your senior leaders understand that the first reports are never accurate anyway. But they are always thankful they had the information. If something bad happens, please share it immediately. Put it up the chain. Call your chief, call your commander, call your shirt. Something. Let somebody know. Because if they find out on the backside, they're going to be even more pissed off that they didn't know about it to begin with. Next slide. Don't blindside anybody, especially on email. We'll get to my hatred of email here in a bit. But please, it is so easy to blindside somebody on email, but that is not what teammates do. That is not how we're going to inspire loyalty. That is not how we're going to maximize teamwork. That's not how we're going to communicate. Do not blindside people. Give them the professional courtesy of being your teammate and explain it to them. A lot of times it's a tough conversation, but again, so much of this is about getting the conversation right. Next slide. Captain Katie Vorel was a staff sergeant. We promoted her to tech, step promoted her. She taught me this as a second lieutenant. She's like, Chief, I live at 85%. Because my point is this, I'm sure that everybody here is 100% current in ADLS, right? Because we check that shit every Monday morning, like, oh, ADLS is coming out, I need to make sure I'm current on all that stuff. First thing we do, Monday morning, check that, right? Absolutely. Like, ooh, Seaburn, I gotta reschedule that. No offense. That's okay, you're human beings. This is why we have additional duties, so other people can help us monitor these. We're busy, we have stuff to do, we have lives, we have children. It's okay. But when the time comes, be prepared. When the time comes, put in the extra effort. This does not give you an escape clause to shirk any of your responsibilities. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying if you work for me, I know that you're human. I understand it. You should understand that your people are human too. And if you catch them in the 15% of stuff that didn't go right, just tell them, hey, fix it. If they don't do it past then you can throttle them. But just have the conversation. Get the conversation right and understand they are human beings. Next slide. Going back to information, for whatever reason, I am happy to give anybody that I work for information on my terms. More than happy to do it. But the minute they ask me to give them information, they go, why do you want to know? What, you don't trust me? You can't just wait for my update, you have to ask me about this? Why I get butthurt over that, I have no idea. But it's a human reaction. So I figured out a couple years ago, and by that I mean about 10 years ago, to spoon feed people chili. So they never have to get in my chili. I spoon feed, spoon feed, spoon feed. So if I'm working for Chief Easy, I spoon feed, and we're talking about different things, then they'll come up to me, hey Chach, what's going on with this? Oh, yep, I'm on it, Chief. Don't worry about it. I'll let you know, should have an update in a week or so. And it's that simple. But then he gets used to the fact that, hey, if something's going on, Chachi's going to tell me. He may not give me all the information, they'll just put it on my radar. I did that as a command chief. Hey sir, there's something going on in one of our squadrons. It's there, it has to deal with X and X situation. Not going to give you names, not going to give you squadron numbers, just heads up, I may have to talk to you in the next day or two. That's all he needs. Because somebody asked me, he's like, yeah, Chief Pachasa said, yeah, he said that there's something, something's amiss at the Circle K, right? But we can have those conversations. Spoon feeding chili. so no one ever has to get in yours. Next slide. I can't say it enough. Please make mistakes, but demand that your people make mistakes too. Don't tell them to break the law. That's not what I'm talking about, right? But people are going to make mistakes. Make sure that you are shaping an environment where they can A, feel free to try new things, and then B, they're free to fail at trying those new things. We do this all the time. Let's not berate or chastise our people when they strike out from time to time. Because if we beat them down, you're going to beat the life out of them. You're going to beat the initiative out of them. And you're going to beat the teamwork out of them. And they're not going to want to communicate. And they're not going to be loyal to you. And the Pachasa 8 gets jacked up. And it's going to fail. Please let them fail. By all means, hold them accountable. I'm not saying don't hold them accountable. But give them opportunities. If they keep swinging at the same shitty pitch, call them out for that. That's a different situation. But a lot of times you just don't know. Give them some opportunity. If they swing at the same shitty pitch, pull them in, talk to them. Be like, hey, how are you doing? I noticed you screwed this up again. That doesn't seem like you. I want to know if everything's okay. We'll talk more about that here in a little bit. Next slide. If everything is important, nothing is important. And the Air Force has been pretty good about preaching the 2 up, 1 down. Understand priorities 2 levels above you and 1 level below you, and facilitate that communication with transparency. And if you don't know as a leader, ask immediately. Because how do you know how you're going to guide your priorities or push your efforts and your focus to find team success if you don't know 2 levels up and 1 level down? Start this conversation. This is pivotal to getting the conversation right, to making sure we're hitting our markers, collecting our data, finding success. 2 up, 1 down, triage. If everything's important, nothing's important. Next. Please, please, please. Moral high ground. Seek it, obtain it, snuggle it, tickle it, and until your dying day, never let the moral high ground go. Never. If you have a disagreement at work and you abandon the moral high ground, I promise you instantly change the conversation from what was originally the disagreement to now what has become your abandonment of the moral high ground. And regardless of the outcome of whatever disagreement you're having, you're going to have to apologize for abandoning the moral high ground. And when you abandon the moral high ground with somebody that you are higher ranking than, and someone is in your team that is subordinate to you, you have lost them forever. Forever. And I think most of us in this room can understand when somebody has done that. When they chewed you out for something that probably wasn't your fault, who didn't give you an opportunity to speak or share your perspective for what was going on, and you just got yelled at, and you watched them abandon the moral high ground, and you felt helpless because you couldn't do anything about it. You can do something about it. Again, you have your voice, have a conversation, get the conversation right. But please, as professionals and as teammates, it is never okay to abandon the moral high ground. Next slide. I hate email. Oh, do I hate email. More badness comes from email than I could ever possibly imagine. And going back to the quote I had from the movie Hitch, is that if you shoot an email, there's no body language and there's no tone. And here's the kicker. Kind, polite, teamwork building emails are not randomly found in nature. They don't just randomly exist. You truly have to go out of your way to send a kind, polite email that somebody will receive with any type of positivity. Any type. You really have to go out of your way. And a lot of times when you type this stuff out, even when you try to do it professionally, right? You're mad at somebody, they did something wrong, and you're trying to send them an email to let them know you're wrong. It is nearly impossible to have that point on email and make it without furthering the badness or the bad blood or the butt hurt. Pick up the phone. Walk over to their office. If you're going to send an angry email because you have to, and you have to hold somebody accountable via email, by all means do so. Try and either shoot them an email ahead of time saying, hey, spoiler alert, I got some hate coming your way. Or call them on the phone and say, hey, I'm getting ready to send this email, and I call you out. I'm not doing it out of hate. I'm not doing it because you suck. I'm doing it because it's the right thing to do, and I have to do this. The boss is asking for this, and the mission requires it. I am normally okay with that. And normally when I'm wrong, I can admit when I'm wrong. A quick understanding of wrong, I brought this up to the flight commander's course that was happening this week, is the understanding of right and wrong. And it's not on here. Quick point. If I were to invite all of you over to my house tonight for dinner, I was going to cook you chicken breasts. I put a nice golden brown, perfectly spiced chicken breast in front of you. It looks amazing. You cut right through the middle of it, cut all the way through, and you can see with your Mark I calibrated eyeball all the raw in the middle of the chicken, and you can tell that the chicken breast was 51% cooked. Would you eat the chicken? No, that's disgusting. But why, when it comes to right and wrong, do a lot of leaders get to be 51% right? They declare a winner, they hoist a flag, they exalt themselves on high like, I am right, end of discussion. And they ignore the 49% of raw that they're making you eat. Do we get to do that as teammates? Would I expect you to eat 49% of raw just because I said it's 51% cooked? I'm like, well, it's mostly cooked. I don't see what the problem is. This is why they don't have like chicken tartare, right? But let's understand our ownership of wrong, because did I, as a wing command chief, get to be 90% right and ignore 10% of wrong that I brought to the conversation? No. Could I be 99% right and ignore the 1% of the conversation if that made my team that much better? No. We need to get the conversation right. And rarely, if ever, is any of us perfect in our communication. Perfect in our communication of expectation. Regardless of how it was delivered or how it was received, there's an ish there. Because we're humans. That's it. And if we're smart enough and bold enough to admit when we're wrong, because here's the thing, when I'm right or wrong, I don't care if I'm in a conversation with Chief BZ, he and I are having a disagreement for whatever happened. Here's the deal. I don't care if he's right. I don't care if he's wrong. I don't care if I'm right or I don't care if I'm wrong. What I care about is that he and I get the conversation right. And if we focus on getting the conversation right, neither one of us have to have a bruised ego. Because it's about the conversation, not about he or I. So as leaders, understand the chicken breast and the concept of how important it is to get the conversation right, regardless of whether we are right as human beings, right or wrong. Next slide. There's nothing magical about flying out of Baltimore into Kuwait or into Afghanistan that is magically going to make you do your job perfectly. And a lot of people cut corners or back at home station, oh, I'll totally do that downrange. No, I get it. Oh, I can't show up to work on time here, but I'm going to show up for work on time every time when I'm deployed? Absolutely not. You need to uphold the standard in training, because nothing about that flight is going to make you perfect. Nothing about that flight is going to make you any better or any more focused. You have to train to the standard here in peacetime. And the less you train in peacetime, or the more you train in peacetime, the less you'll bleed more. Next slide. Lead, follower, get the F out of the way. I'm sure we've all heard this throughout our careers, yes? And it's always been presented as options. I don't believe that these are options. I think these are three things that leaders should be doing simultaneously in every interaction that we have. And it's up to the smart, educated, caring leader to understand when they're going to lead, when they're going to follow, and when they're going to get out of the way. Not options. All these are happening simultaneously for all the different things that you can go about doing the day that you have to do. Tasks, appointments, emails. Lead, follow, or get out of the way. Not options. Simultaneous reasons for awesomeness. Next slide. I used to go to Arlington National Cemetery to see history. I'd go see Audie Murphy. And I'd go see some of our generals. Every time I go there, I see the common, simple headstone for General Doolittle. I used to go there to see history. Now I go there to visit my friends. My friends ran out of time, ahead of their time. I have a tattoo on my left arm of a Norse symbol called the Falkland. And it's really an homage to fallen warriors in a common context. And I put it specifically there on my left hand underneath my watch for 2 reasons. Number one, as a constant reminder that time ran out for my friends and that time waits for nobody. And also as a constant reminder that I need to be in charge of my minutes. Dr. Alan Weiss has a quote in one of his books. He's like a leadership consultant expert, shows you how to like form businesses, and the stuff that he does for his personal business, he schedules things around to maximize time with family. You can always make another dollar, he says, but you can't make another minute. I read that line and changed my life instantly, and I have now become very, very judicious with how I spend my minutes. And as Chief Easy alluded to, this is why I turned in my Command Chief Star, which is why in 4 months I'm retiring to Fort Living Room, and I'm hanging up the title of Chief in TAC-P. I get the best title of Dad, and I'm good with that. But I know how I'm going to spend my minutes. And so hold me, I know how I'm not going to spend my minutes. I offer this to all of you. Take this understanding of what you do and why you're doing it. Military life is tough. Military life is worth it. I promise you that. But I can't tell you when enough is enough. I can't tell you when it's okay to sacrifice more or not. When to achieve more or not. To try new things, to work longer, deploy more. Only you can determine whether that is good for you, your team, your family. But acknowledge that for yourself. You are in charge and you own your minutes. Be very judicious and understand how you spend your minutes, because you can't make more of it. Next slide. One of the coolest things I ever got to do as a command chief was last January, the second set of people ripped into Ali Al-Salim, and I pulled all the senior NCOs aside, and I mandated benefit of the doubt. I said, as senior NCOs, we are going to give each other benefit of the doubt. That's what we do. And I told them, if you are upset because you did not get benefit of the doubt in some way, your first reaction here was to give that person benefit of the doubt and move forward from there. I learned this lesson from the 7th Air Force Command Chief, Chief Hudson. He and I started our command chiefing careers together 2 weeks apart at Joint Base McGuire-Dix Lakers. One of his group chiefs was having a fight with one of my group chiefs, and I knew this. And his group chief was kind of a jerk and just sending bad emails, bad communication. Chief Hudson had sent me an email that I did not like at all. Again, all email is read with hate. So what did I do? I abandoned the moral high ground and took to sending a bad email. Dear Phil, send. Ha! I win. 30 minutes later, I get a text from Chief Hudson. He says, hey Chachi, I'm down at the Chief's leadership course, kind of augmenting here. I have a break in 30 minutes. I would like to discuss this with you. I instantly knew I was wrong. I instantly knew that I did not give him benefit of the doubt. And he's one of my greatest friends. He's amazing. He's just a good dude. So he called me up, and when he called me up on break, said, Phil, before you begin, I went back and reread the email. Turns out this could have been interpreted a couple different ways, and for whatever reason, I decided to take it the absolute worst way, because apparently I have no standing relationship with you whatsoever that, to understand that you wouldn't send this to me, so I had to get mad at this immediately and lash out at you. I didn't get benefit of the doubt. To my very shame, I lashed out at a good friend of mine, but it taught me a valuable lesson. Benefit of the doubt. 2 things with the benefit of the doubt. If you're going to give benefit of the doubt, make sure the person is competent. That's a huge one. People need to know what you're talking about in this arena for this conversation. You can go forward. Then they need to be credible, because I don't care if you're competent until I know it. They need to be informed. They need to be trustworthy. If you can't do all 4, it's very hard to give someone benefit of the doubt, or if you're going to get frustrated with that one way or the other if they're lacking those things. And then the second part of benefit of the doubt is the higher rank you are, the less benefit of the doubt you get. Because I'm going to hold you accountable to your actions, because you know better. You 100% know better. And if you send me a crappy email and you're a senior airman, you're a senior airman. That's going to happen from time to time. You have a different perspective than I do. Then we can have that conversation. I'm not going to lash out. Another chief sends me a crappy email, now we're going to have a different conversation. And now I'm going to hold you accountable to your words because you know better. As a fellow senior NCO, you know how you should or shouldn't speak to me as your teammate. Next slide. This is how you can get a hold of me. I have 4 months left in the military. I want to make a difference. That's why I'm here. Chief Hudson and Chief Veazey were kind enough to extend the invite to bring me out here so I could teach this stuff and speak tomorrow night. And so far, this has been one of the greatest thrills of my lifetime. But I ask you to help me have the conversation. I'm not saying I'm right up here. I'm just saying this is one dude's opinion. But I'm one of the only dudes who's trying to quantify the whole airman concept to make it tangible, repeatable, and transparent to people so they can follow it, they can personify it, and they can find success. That's all I'm saying. If you disagree with what I said up here today, email me, call me, do whatever. Let's have the conversation. If you agree and you think you can contribute, you have a different scenario, a different idea, how I thought about this word or why did I choose this word over another one, email me, write me, figure it out. Let's have the conversation. Let's get the conversation right. And then lastly, I have a podcast. Obviously free. It's on Apple, whatever. All you have to do is go up, do a search. There's a shield with an L in the middle for CAPE lead. Because for me, my leadership theory comes to CAPE. And notwithstanding the advice from the movie The Incredibles, right? If you want to be you can be a good leader, you can be a great leader, or you can be a superhero type of leader. If you want to be a superhero, you got to wear a cape. Caring, alignment, perspective, and expectations. I want to continue to have this conversation with you. But mostly, I just want to thank you for being here today. It is really amazing that all these leaders could find time during your day because you spent your minutes here today trying to see if I had something of value. Trying to think if there's some way for you to improve your leadership knowledge, your leadership perspective, and hopefully some way that you can make your team better. And for that, I am eternally grateful. And with that, I'll kind of end up with, does anyone have any questions for me? All right. Again, thank you very much for your time today. Thank you very much for your attention, for your reactions, for the eye contact, the body language. I really, really appreciate it. Again, I'm on Osan for the next 2.5 days until I fly back. So if you see me around, stop me, ask me questions. How I thought about this, if I thought about that. You liked it, you loved it. Bring on the hate. Question. Do I think it's harder for an airman to make a difference? I don't think so. You can have a seat, please. Thank you. I just ask that you care. And so I'll kind of put Chief Veazey on the spot. I promise you, if you want to email Chief Veazey and have a conversation with him, email him. You'll get on his calendar. He's that good of a dude. He wants these conversations. Again, like to your point, closed mouths don't get fed. I don't know what you're struggling with. I don't know that maybe you were trying to hit a home run and you only came up with a single. Or maybe you come up and be like, hey, Chief Pachasa, I'm trying to hit home runs, but there's somebody at work who's just holding my bat. They won't even let me step up to the plate. I'm just sitting in the dugout trying to figure out what's right. Because I know you want to take the field. I know you want to be on the all-star team. Like people out here, I'm a huge football guy. Cleveland Browns fans? Any Browns fans? Yeah. Nice.
3 of you.
So anyway, the Browns are awesome. I don't know what to tell you. As far as Browns go, we won the Super Bowl this year. And next year, next Baker Mayfield, I love you. Please be the savior we've been asking for 30 years. He's the new coming of Bernie Kosar. Here's how to find success. Here's a mindset that I would like people to have. Super Bowl preparation with Hall of Fame dedication. Are you preparing your unit and your wing to win Super Bowls? For the next exercise, for an attack from the north, from peace from the north. Are you prepared to win Super Bowls? And are you going to go in the Hall of Fame in your career field or your unit for the amazing job that you did? That's the kind of airman I want to work with. That's the kind of person that when I work with, they don't motivate me, they inspire me. Super Bowl dedication with Hall of Fame, or Super Bowl preparation with Hall of Fame dedication. Getting back to your answer, Airmen can absolutely make a difference, 100%. But you have to speak up. Speak intelligently, have the conversation, get the conversation right. And we as senior leaders need to allow for the sharing of perspective. I need to listen to you before you hear my perspective, because I want yours to be pure. So you're going to be afraid of sharing your perspective if it conflicts with mine. So senior leaders, I don't know why I've always hated this. We've always had chief panels and a bunch of airmen or NCOs out there. Let's have 4 or 5 airmen up here on a panel and throw all the senior NCOs out here. Let's just ask airmen questions, pure questions. Let them share what's going on. Let you hear exactly what they have going on in their minds and their words for what they think is happening here at Osan or blank, blank Air Force Base. Let's do something different because we want to make a difference. That's a good question. Anybody else? I appreciate your time today, Colonel, Chief. Thank you very much for having here. I'm going to hang out here for if anyone has any questions, but I appreciate your time. I hope you have a great rest of your week. Thank you.